General Labor Confederation of Argentina goes on its second 24-hour national strike against the reforms promoted by President Javier Milei. In Brazil, the rains in Rio Grande Do Sul have left 107 people dead so far, while a record number of 136 people were reported missing due to the flooding. In Palestine, intense Israeli attacks on East Rafah have left dozens of people killed. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The General Labor Confederation of Argentina goes on its second 24-hour national strike against the reforms promoted by President Javier Milei. According to a statement of the workers' unions, the strike aims at defending labor and social rights as well as demanding a living wage. The workers also denounced the adjustment carried out by the executive allegedly in favor of market freedom, pointing out that this especially affects the lower income sectors, the middle class and retirees. Transport unions are also taking part in the strike, therefore subway, train and bus services are affected, as interruptions in the flight of Aerolíneas Argentina are also expected. We continue in Argentina, where neighbors and activists of the LGBTQ+ community held a vigil for the crime committed last Monday against two lesbian couples in the city of Buenos Aires. During the assault, a man set fire to the room where the couples lived, and two women died from resulting burns. On Wednesday, 100 people gathered in silence in front of the site of the crime and lit candles in an improvised vigil. Since taking office in December, Milei closed the Ministry of Women and the National Institute Against Discrimination and banned inclusive language in all public administration communications. Citizens, human rights organizations and LGBTQ activists accused the government of promoting hate speech that moved from social networks to the streets.
A few days before all this, there had been a hate speech made by an author of one of the books that the government is supporting and which was legitimized by the government. It shows that openly there is a hidden hate campaign, but there is a hate campaign, indeed, that is becoming more and more visible.
The Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, announced that the country experienced an important growth in the commercial sector. The Venezuelan Vice President pointed out that during 2023, commerce grew by 4%, with the opening of more than 19,000 new commercial establishments. Rodriguez also informed that electronic commerce in the country grew by more than 150%. The high official pointed out that Venezuela managed to increase the number of supplies in spite of the unilateral coercive measures imposed by the United States.
In the year 2018, because we must know the history, in 2018, President Nicolás Maduro presented to the country the program Economic Recovery or Growth and Prosperity, which had sub-programs, among them to recover the income capacity of our workers, of our female workers, to recover also the capacity to collect fiscal taxes that will help boost the economy. To recover the national productive sectors. We were coming from a process that had been very hard, hit by the economic blockade, which was harsh, unjust and criminal against Venezuela, which resulted in tremendous numbers of shortages in the country. Today, we can say that we have the best supply index in 20 years, with shortage figure of only 3%.
In Venezuela, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez remarked that economic growth projections exceeded the International Monetary Fund's expectations.
But the numbers that are already given for the first quarter in economic growth, as we have warned, exceeded the projections of the International Monetary Fund, and they also match with the numbers that you handle of how it has grown 2 points over 2% over last year's 4-month period. What does this mean? What is this showing? That the year that is still to come will be much better than the first 4 months period. That is the good news that we like to celebrate together, and that has to do also with the recovery of the integral income of the workers in a conjuncture of economic asphyxia, of a blow to the country's foreign currency income, at a time, as you all know, when what has been sought most is to harm the most vulnerable areas of the Venezuelan population.
In Brazil, the rains in Rio Grande do Sul left 107 people dead so far, and a record number of 136 people were reported missing due to the effects of flooding. The state's civil department informed on Thursday that more than 164,000 people are homeless, while another 66,761 have been transferred to shelter centers. According to local authorities, after carrying out evaluations on the water level, it was shown that it rose about 3 centimeters, so it is estimated that floods will continue in the coming days. In this sense, the civil defense advised the population not to return to the flooded areas and also emphasized that rescue efforts are still continuing to find more missing victims. In the same context, more than 700 people have been evacuated in Uruguay as a result of heavy rains and floods. According to the country's national emergency system, the rains and floods have blocked roads and affected the water and power supplies in several regions of the South American nation. On the other hand, the Meteorological Institute issued an alert on the rains and storms that are expected in the next few days. Meanwhile, in Honduras, the Secretariat of Risk Management and National Contingencies declared a red alert due to high atmospheric pollution in Tegucigalpa, the capital of the country. The authorities reported that there is poor air quality due to a dense layer of smoke that affects the health of the capital's pollution. This situation is caused by the burning of land for agricultural purposes in the region, some forest fires and pollution from vehicle emissions. The institution declared a green alert for the rest of the country for an indefinite period to monitor the phenomenon and protect people's health. And in El Salvador, weather authorities recorded temperatures of up to 40 degrees Celsius, the highest so far this year. Authorities of the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources report that high temperatures have been maintained since April, representing an unprecedented record of over 41 degrees Celsius during the next few days, especially in the afternoon and early evening. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Those stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Palestine, intensive Israeli attacks on East Rafah have left dozens of people killed and thousands displaced. After the latest escalation in attacks launched by Israeli aircraft, thousands of Palestinians have been forced to take dangerous evacuation routes to central Gaza. More than 80,000 people have been displaced from Rafah alone in recent days, according to the UN Works Agency for Palestine Refugees. Simultaneously, Israeli forces besieged the city of Gaza, where they attacked at least 10 homes in the Zaytun neighborhood, killing and wounding dozens, as reported by the Wafa news agencies. Since the beginning of the genocidal aggression in Gaza, Israel has killed 34,904 people, most of them women and children. At the same time, several towns in the occupied West Bank suffered violent assaults by the Israeli occupation army, ending with the detention of at least 25 Palestinians. The occupation forces stormed the areas of Bethlehem, Ramallah, Hebron, Jenin, Nablus, Salfate, and Jerusalem, conducting home searches, tampering with their belongings, and arresting citizens. The number of Palestinian prisoners in the West Bank has risen to more than 8,665 since the start of the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip on October 7th. U.S. police forces detained students on pro-Palestinian rallies in Washington, D.C. Just hours after students marched to the home of the president of the George Washington University, the police arrested around 33 students at a pro-Palestinian protest held to ratify their rejection of Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people. Tensions escalated in the clashes with the forces, which has triggered widespread rejection in the student community. In the United States, progressive House Democrats joined students from George Washington University to condemn police attempts to disable protest camps against Israeli aggression.
Students are protesting all across the country because they believe our government has failed to recognize the common humanity of all people. They're protesting because they oppose our government's silence and complicity in the death of at least 35,000 Palestinians. They are protesting our government's complicity in a genocide and humanitarian crisis of famine, disease, and other pervasive suffering.
Likewise, Palestinian U.S. lawmaker Rashid Al-Tlaib assured the students are asking to save human lives.
Students are saying save lives no matter faith or ethnicity.
That's right.
This is something that I feel like is being completely ignored. Why are they out there? This is why we're proud. We're proud to use our position in office to bring these voices so you all don't forget why there are encampments, why there are movements in dissent around this country.
Similarly, students in Belgium held demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people and against the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. Protesters demanded university authorities to break off ties with Israel. On Thursday morning, students have taken over different areas of the universities in order to make their demands heard. It is worth highlighting that these rallies in support of the Palestinian cause have been reported in several universities' campuses around Europe.
We therefore have three main demands. The first is an end to all links and collaboration between the ULB and Israel. The second is a transparent list of all these links, because we are not sure that we are aware of all the links there are, so that we can have a critical opinion and be able to give our verdict on them. Thirdly, we call on the cancellation of the visit of the former Israeli ambassador to our campus, who has been invited by the rector.
In Panama, several organizations gathered in front of one of the main universities in the country to show solidarity with Palestine. The demonstration was a cultural rally where people expressed their support to the Palestinian cause. Participants also asked the government to cease relations with Israel and indicate that they joined the worldwide movement to demand the establishment of an independent Palestinian state.
They want to exterminate all of the Palestinian people to take over the Gaza Strip. That is illegal. It is a crime against humanity. Let's put ourselves in the place of all those young people. I will not end the day here telling you what the Israeli army did in Gaza, in a hospital a few days ago. Well, a few weeks ago, the wounded people were lying on the floor outside the hospital because, of course, there are no beds and there is nothing in those bomb hospitals. And with tanks, they pass over the wounded. Young soldiers of Israel, that is the government that poisoned their brains.
In Spain, university students joined the World Day of Protest for Palestine as they set an encampment in rejection of the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip. Student communities of several universities participated in international protests against the supply of aid to the Tel Aviv regime. Consequently, they set up camp indefinitely at the gates of the Faculty of Philosophy of the University of Valencia and the campus of the Complutense University of Madrid. In this context, authorities of public universities are assessing the closure of relations with institutions that refuse to denounce the genocide against the Palestinian people. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In the framework of his trip to Russia, President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, met with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, in a bilateral meeting in Moscow. The Russian leader thanked the Cuban president for his presence at the military parade on the occasion of the 79th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War of 1941-1945. He also welcomed Cuba's participation as an observer in the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council, as he emphasized that Moscow rejects U.S. attempts to curb Cuba's development through sanctions. In turn, Díaz-Canel referred to NATO's rapprochement to the Russian borders and the geopolitical manipulation being carried out by the U.S. Russia commemorates the 79th anniversary of the victory over Nazism. The date celebrates the victory of the Red Army and the Soviet people over Nazi Germany in what they remember as the Great Patriotic War of 1941-1945.
During the main speech, Russian President Vladimir Putin denounced that attempts to distort the truth about the Second World War are part of the policy of Western powers to create world conflicts.
Retaliation, the mocking of history, the desire to justify the current Nazi supporters, are part of the general policy of the Western elites to start regional conflicts, inter-ethnic and inter-religious fighting, and attempt to contest sovereign and independent centers of world development.
In this regard, the Russian leader emphasized that in spite of world tensions, Moscow is working to preserve and defend global peace.
We reject unilateral claims by any state or alliance. We know what the arrogance of such ambitions leads to. Russia will do everything to avoid a global confrontation, but at the same time we will not allow anyone to threaten us. Our strategic forces are always ready for combat.
Within the framework of the Victory Over Fascism Day celebrations, deputies, heads of law enforcement bodies, veterans, military patriotic organizations and the government of the Russian Federation took part in the traditional ceremony of laying flowers in memory of the fallen soldiers of the Great Patriotic War.
In this context, the Russian president thanked the presence of current and historical allies to his nation, such as Cuba.
We remember the contribution to the fight against Nazism by the allies of the anti-Hitler coalition, participants in the convoys of the Lend-Lease program, which, by the way, included Cuba. We are glad to see the president of this country, Mr. Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, on this solemn day with all of us. In the presence of the president of Laos, Thongloun Sisoulith, we welcome the people of the countries where underground members of the National Liberation Movement were active during the Second World War. Their struggle became the prologue to the emergence of independent sovereign states in Asia, which today play a growing role in the global economy and world affairs.
In the same way they attack you, Cuba is constantly being discredited by the press media at the service of the empire, and also by the social media, with very perverse practices, such as reputation assassination, lies, falsehood, slander and manipulation of all these facts. The first of these trends is characterized by the strengthening of the blockade during the last 4 years, with the measures implemented by the Trump administration and maintained by the Biden administration. These measures are having a major impact on the food supply of the Cuban people, on the energy situation and on the availability of fuel, on food, on medicines and also on infrastructure issues. We are not going to give up, nor are we going to surrender. The Cuban people has a tradition of resistance. We call creative resistance because it has not only resisted, but has overcome the difficulties with creativity and innovation.
Prime Minister of Hungary Viktor Orban received President of China Xi Jinping at the last stop of his tour through Europe. On Thursday, the Chinese head of state will meet with President of Hungary Tamás Sulyok and Prime Minister Orban. Prior to his arrival, the leader stated that Hungary is a pivotal trading partner of China, describing as fruitful the economic cooperation between the countries. He also added that the talks in Budapest will address China's Belt and Road Initiative and deepen relations in infrastructure, finance, energy, and communications. The visit marks the third and last stop of Xi Jinping's European tour that will last until Friday. In North Macedonia, the nationalist opposition won the parliamentary and presidential elections. The right-wing candidate Gordana Siljanovska-Davkova led with 64.84% of the votes against the 29.29% amassed by Stevo Pendarovski, the current president candidate of the Social Democratic Union of Macedonia, the ruling party. According to analysts, the return to power of the right-wing opposition in the Balkan nation of 1.8 million inhabitants may fuel tensions with Greece and especially Bulgaria, which is blocking negotiations for North Macedonia's accession to the European Union due to ethno-linguistic issues.
I will behave as a president for all citizens, for all ethnic groups, members of all parties, people not affiliated to any party. No president can ask for unity, especially a woman, if she holds a party line. That is why the doors of my office are open to all.
And moving on to sports, in Argentina, UN Women and the International Olympic Committee launched the Sport for Equality campaign, which aims to encourage institutions and sports organizations to promote gender equality in and through sport. Argentinian social activists emphasize that they strive to make visible the power of sport to bridge the gender gap, as well as the importance for women to have access to training, receive fair salaries and prizes, and to practice the sport they want without discrimination. Both organizations look to motivate girls and young women to develop their skills in a safe space, free of violence, and aim to support governments, parliaments, and institutions in promoting gender equality in sports. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.